that day,
I asked Josh this morning if he had an excuse from his mommy why he wasn't here yesterday. He said no, but he has an excuse from a doctor. His doctor's excuse.
I said that was a joke when my boys were in yeshiva. We needed them home for an in-Shabbos. I'd write a doctor's note. So the Rosh Hashanah said, "Going to give him another doctor's note."
And like the teacher gets a note. My son Joey couldn't come yesterday because he had a stomachache. Signed my mommy.
Well, slightly different vein. We have to be thankful we're here in Beit Shemesh. My son was flying to the States last night, and his flight was an hour earlier, probably because of the weather. Good thing he checked his email.
It was an hour early?
They left an hour early, probably, to beat the weather in New York.
Oh, yeah, that's really supposed to be real nasty stuff there.
When is the storm? Is
Supposed to come, no, it's supposed to come tomorrow morning, I think.
Tomorrow morning, yeah.
What about there's supposed to be a storm in Israel? Where's that good?
What kind of stuff?
It's right on the news.
Huh?
I didn't have a chance to
rain
check.
tomorrow. It's going to be cold.
We usually get one snow for the season.
Is there a question on the table?
There's lots of stuff on the table, but no question.
When is the storm coming?
It's my bar mitzvah parsha.
No.
This is your birthday.
Whose?
Happy birthday.
Don't you know the story with the rabbi? I always tell this story. Remember I tell you this all the time, you never remember. When I first, it's not no game, but maybe we can tie it in. We can tie it in weirder things. When I first moved to Milwaukee, I was 12 years old. I grew up in Baltimore. So the rabbi goes, the rabbi taught me I was not an easy student at all.
No.
Does the rabbi remember that?
That comes as a great surprise.
That part the rabbi remembered. Anyway, very quickly, so the rabbi says, what type of shul did you go to in Baltimore? I said, Sfard. So this is Sephardi or Ashkenaz. So the rabbi taught me the Sephardi Haftorah. So I go to the shul in Baltimore, and the rabbi announces, today's Haftorah will be, I go, no. Today's Haftorah, I read the wrong question. So the rabbi got up there and says, okay, so today's Haftorah will be the one I prepared, luckily. Otherwise, I would never forgive
You can do that.
You can do that. To save people's graces, so they're not embarrassed. It's a good thing. That's my famous story of the rabbi and my bar mitzvah. The rabbi did teach me very difficult.
Yitzchak, go for it.
Oh, you survived.
I have
That's the important thing.
a little question on.
Sorry, I didn't record that. Can you say it again?
No.
So when Kodesh Baruch Hu comes to Moshe at the Sneh, etc., so when Moshe says to Hashem, when they're going to ask me what's the name, what am I supposed to tell them? Why should they care what name it is? He already said in the pasuk that the God of my Elokei Avoseichem shalachti aleichem. Hashem already said that. So why does he even need to have a name? And if you're living under 210 years of Avdus, and that, just get me out of here. What do I mean? Who sent me here? And the pasuk already told you who's coming. The God of my father, of your father. Well, they say that's the one, right? But here it's a different one. It doesn't say that. It says Ekev is coming to you.
Yeah, so that's
It's
the
even
password.
They didn't know that word either. Who's?
Maybe they're asking about what's the ofen of Yeshua, because it wasn't predictable. Simon said, Be'ito or Achishana, because there wasn't a schus, there in Neches Harituma, and Be'ito was 400 years. So how can he pull it off?
Doesn't follow either.
Right. Except if you're waiting for
So,
Hatzalah
so-
to come, you're not asking which Hatzalah is coming, you're just looking for help. I hear different aspects, because it is coming at different times.
Yeah, so
The
like,
Gula came earlier.
Yeah, like, so what Mida is involved in, is what, maybe
On
when Moshe
On our
would want.
behalf, you mean? Why Hashem is taking us now?
Yeah, in other words, which, if it's Midas HaMishpat or Midas, Haggis HaMishpat or Haggis HaYichud.
So some of the things that I don't know. I think maybe Rabbi Michel was saying over here is that there really was a problem. There was a Masera. Oops, is it leaking? No. There was a Masera that from the Bris Ben Absorim that they were supposed to be there for 400 years. And many of the Meforshim say that really ended up being part of what escorted Bnei Yisrael after they went out into the desert and they encountered these different challenges, whether it was Amalek or whether it was a lack of water or a lack of meat or food, whatever the case. But whenever there was something that seemed to them to be a major threat to their viability in the desert, they immediately began to say, let's appoint a chief and let's go back to Egypt. So many of the Mepharshim say that the reason that they resorted to that, or that they kind of went there, was because there were many who questioned whether or not they had a right to go out before 400 years. They knew they were supposed to be there for 400 years, and they went out before the time. There was also the debacle with Shevet Ephraim, who went out 30 years earlier under the leadership of Yeshua's father, Nun, and they were slaughtered by the Plishtim. There are those who say that the nevuah that Yechezkel had with
The dry bones.
with the dry bones were the Haruge Shevet Ephraim, that they were, and according to some there was over 100,000.
Mapilim.
Huh?
The Mapilim. Ma'apilim.
These are not the Mapilim. These were not the Mapilim. Mapilim were
Later.
were later. That was in the desert when they went out with Moshe Rabbeinu, but that was by the Meraglim. But this was earlier. This was 30 years before. This was 180 years into the Shibud Mitzrayim, and the Shevet Ephraim went out. Many of them went out and were slaughtered by the Plishtim. So they had that experience, and in general there was this nagging doubt: did they have a right to go out before the 400 years? So,
in other words, there was no suffix when the starting count was.
what?
They didn't have any suffix of when the starting.
So that was the thing. The question: did it start from the birth of Yitzchak? The Maharal says that by the Bris Ben Absorim, so he said, "Ki ger yezaracha be'eretz le'lahem va'avodun v'inu esam." So Maharal said there were 4 phases. Phase number 1 was ger yezaracha, they will be strangers, and that meant they were going to be strangers even in Eretz Canaan, that they would feel that the circumstances would make them feel like strangers in their own land. And then they would end up being outside of Eretz Yisrael. They'd be in another land. In this case, turned out to be Eretz Canaan, and then they would be be'eretz le'lahem. Then there would be a further deterioration, and they would become ba'avadim. They would become avadim, but they would not be inuyim. In other words, there would not be affliction, and then it finally deteriorated into the last phase, which was the last 80 years from the birth of Miriam until the Geula, which was the Inoisam. That's when it further evolved into Inui. And
That's from late as Miriam?
what?
Specifically from late as Miriam?
Right.
So that'd be more than 80 years, because she's older than Moshe.
Right. So
Moshe 80,
yeah, so it was 80
80-something
something,
years.
80 something years.
Well,
Right.
why from late as Miriam?
I don't know. That's what they say. It's just said with maybe because her name reflected Megilus, could be. And they say that the Arba L'Shainos of Geula, for which we have the Arba Kosos, that the four expressions of Geula correspond to reversing those four phases of so the first one was that was the end to end the Inui. And then Vitzal Yaschem Abidos, that was the end of Aveda, and that was the servitude. Now we're going backwards now. The last thing that happened is the first thing that has to be corrected. So it deteriorated into the Inui So that was the. Then the next thing was, the second last thing was Vavadum, so that's so that was somehow to reverse the fact that they would be gerim in a land not of their own. Would be to return them to Eretz Yisrael, where they would not be strange in their own. And the Maharal said that that's the correspondence. That there were four phases in the deterioration of Klal Yisrael's relationship, and then four phases of correction or redemption. So those are the abolitionis of Geula. But Klal Yisrael had this question about whether or not they should have left. So when things came about that seemed to them to be an indicative of the fact that they went out prematurely, so they began to, that's why many instances they said, so let's go back. They said so at by the Yam Suf, that's they were, let's go back, we'll serve them. So that's kind of what's behind it. So the question over here is that Moshe Rabbeinu is coming to tell them that in reality that the Rabbeinu Shalom is taking them out earlier. So the question is, in a certain sense, what's the logic of this? So, many of the arguments regarding faith and the fact that there's a creator are cause and effect. That we have a world of which very clearly is a world of design, and whenever there's something which is orderly and reflects an intelligent author. So we're going to look for we're going to argue that there has to be some primary cause which is behind the order. The entire issue of order is one which you see in all the Sforim that a scientist can point to a leaf and and you can see a leaf under an electromagnetic microscope and see how exquisite the design of this leaf is. And you say, well, this could possibly have been a result of some random process. And that's true of the human body, and it's true of the exact placement of the earth relative to the sun, and how if it would be, if the earth would be a tad closer, then it wouldn't be able to sustain life, and if it would be a tad further away from the sun, it wouldn't be able. So there's so many different things that the argument of an order points to a deliberate and intelligent author will point to in order to prove its position. In Torah, one of the things that you find in this film is how exquisite the Torah is. It speaks to us in 4 different levels: Pshat, Remez, Drush, Soid. It speaks to us in Neitrikun and in acronyms. It speaks to us in Gematriyos. And when the Sforim go into this, to some of us, Gematria just seems to be kind of playing a game. The jokes are that somebody says that the gematria of Kigel equals the gematria of Shabbos. So when you figure it out, it doesn't work out. He says, well, then eat some more Kigel, There's the Bluzhev Rebbe Olav Hashalom, and he was a survivor of the Nazi era, and there are many very interesting stories. There was this woman, Yafa something. She was a professor, huh?
Eliach.
Which?
Eliach.
Right. So she wrote this book of Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust. So most of it was based on her interviews with the Bluzhev Rebbe. So he was a Rav Shitzer from the Rav Shitzer dynasty, and they were very much into Gematriyos. So, and he would say that Friday night by the Tish, he would do Gematria. There was a fellow who was also a survivor, a brilliant person, and a big lights. So he used to go to the Tish and listen to the thing. So one week he went to the Tish, and the Bluzhev Rebbe said a Torah with a Gematria. Then he turned to Loza, and there was Loza Halpern. So he said, Loza, es stimmt, does it work out? He said, Rebbe, it really doesn't add up. He said, but from what was left over from last week, we can add it to this week. But the issue really is that there is really this magnificent design, which when you're not playing games, but when you can demonstrate how there is this coherence in Torah that speaks, and Shivim Panim LaTorah, there's 70 faces to Torah, and then there's four different levels, and then in addition to that, for every person, that's true, and it's true in a very unique way, which is an expression of our particular relationship with Teva. So the Sfarim talk about the fact that when a person violates a mitzvah, so there are all kinds of cheshbonis that obtain to that because of the fact there is a design, because of the fact that there is order. So when a person violates a mitzvah, so this may be reflected in some sort of an expression of the acronym of the mitzvah or the gematria of the mitzvah. So Rabbi Shamshon Aslapala was this famous Baal Mekubal. So he speaks about the fact that when the Shvatim brought Hashem into their Beis Din in the sale of Yosef, that became somehow part of the in other words, this experience of Mitzrayim in some way was connected to the betrayal of brothers to their brother. So he says that okay, I'll just tell it to you the way it is, and then we'll talk more about it. He says that Yaakov Avinu understood that when the brothers, and this is the assumption that Yaakov Avinu knew what was going on, that he knew later on what had happened, but his assumption was that when they did this avera, that there was it was an insult. In other words, somehow it ended up intruding upon or compromising the way that Rabbi Shalom related to his world from the perspective of Hashem's name, which was Aleph, Hey, Yud, Hey, right? Shem Kaya, which is 21. He had no idea that they had brought the Shekhinah into the process. So he reasoned that if there was going to be some kind of correspondence between that insult and the duration of their exile, then it would be 9 Shvatim. 9 times 21 is 189. So his reckoning was that they should be able to leave Mitzrayim in the 190th year, which should end at 180. So it says, Bikesh Yankov legalis es ha-kates. He wanted to reveal to them that it was going to be kates, it was going to be 190. So why did he make a mistake? He says, Stalkom imena Shechina. He didn't include the Shechina, because if you had included the Shechina, it would have been 10 times 21, and then it would have been 210, like it actually is. So Rosh Hashanah adds that he says Moshe Rabbeinu knew that the Shechina was involved, so it was 10, but he thought that the insult was to the shame Yud Kei Vav Kei. So it should be 10 times 26, which is 260. So here in this parsha it says, by the Snet, it says, Vayar Hashem kisor lirois, kisor lirois, that he turned to see. Sor is 260. So Hashem saw that he had the wrong cheshbon. So as he said to him, no, my name is Kaya. So that's a shtickle terabyte.
That's all with which name?
Huh?
Saying if it was Yud Kei name, that's 26.
So it would have been 26, and it would have been Kisali, right? And he said, no, my name is Kaya. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu said to him, like, what's your name? Like, you know, well,
It just reminded me of a Gemara. You say that the name Aleph Hey Yud Hey times Aleph Hey Yud Hey is 441, which is MS. So it says Eke Ash.
Kaya.
So it's
This must be leaking, huh?
There's some of the name of, that name of
It must
Hashem
be
is the
leaking.
name of.
We shouldn't buy from the low bidder.
Huh?
We shouldn't buy from the low bidder.
That's right.
So what's the Asher?
Eke times, Eke Asher,
It's a square root of M.
Anyway,
So, what's the story about Kisar Leros?
What?
The passage says Kisar Leros means that Moshe thought it was 260.
right. That's Reb Shamson Astipol, that is, okay, thank you.
Insurance.
Rashi hints at that connection before it goes on.
The what?
Rashi hints at the connection with the KSY. It's known as a system. That Rashi describes it as karpas.
Oh, right.
Connecting to what we do at the Leil HaSeder, the dipping of the karpas
Karpas is,
is the tikkun, the dipping of the coat.
all right.
This last thing was Rav Shimshon Astropol?
That's
Okay.
easy. Huh?
Before you said the blue shiver, that was something else.
That what?
This was not from the blue shiver.
No.
The fact that Amisrael didn't believe that it's time for the Gula, is that a greater level or a lower level? Because there is the other that Muna, their forefathers that they.
I don't know, bigger level or smaller level, it's,
Like they went to Rubashkin and he said, time to come out, and he go, no, I still have another 6 years. He had to go out, he went out.
Yeah, Sheva went out early, it was maybe a mistake. Right, 30 years
He was
before.
like, yeah, he didn't, it wasn't so much cheshbon.
Yeah.
What meter is that kid?
which one?
What is the connotation of that kid?
Okay, so, maybe we'll come back to that. I was, the people who questioned whether they should have gone out were not completely out of line, because the Psalm indicate that had they been there for the 400 years, that we wouldn't have had to gone through all the other shibudim. And you know, some people have questioned the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu requested that they go out for 3 days into the desert. Let us go out for 3 days into the desert. So one of the questions is, so was Moshe Rabbeinu was playing a game with them, I really don't mean this. I really don't mean 3 days. But I want to just point out how uncooperative you are, how inflexible you are. So there are those who say that Moshe Rabbeinu was not being entirely, this was not frivolous. That Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, there is merit in their being able to stay there for 400 years, but they can't stay there for 400 years right now because they're on the brink. They're on the edge of this 50th level of Tumah, which would be a complete excision of any connection with the Avos. The fact that there is an identity which marks them as being the nation that's supposed to carry the Rabboni Shalom's tachlis in the world is connected to Avram Avinu, to the Avos and Imos, and had they been there any longer, it would have destroyed that last thread, that last connection. So Moshe Rabbeinu, in fact, was saying to him, if we can go out into the desert and we can kind of reconnect so that we have the resilience and that we have in other words, we have the ruchnistic keiches to be able to stay here longer without losing our identity, then we can be here. So it wasn't just like I'm gonna make this proposal to you and show you how ridiculous you are, how inflexible you are. This would have worked, but he was in fact inflexible, and the result was that there was no choice. They really did have to leave because they were threatened in the most absolute way.
They said that by Yosef too, when if he could have not revealed himself when he did, if he didn't break down then.
Right.
They also
So-
say that the Gula could.
Right, so that would also
Could have
have been an
happened at that
impact
point.
on it.
Remember, we have a Havtacha Leisishtachach term in Yisrael, but would you say that today, that there's an equivalency, what's the status today of Klal Yisrael? Are we on the brink?
Marriage and simulation is kind of bad, or what?
Just asking.
The brink of what?
Of getting to a point where the disconnect is irreparable.
You know, number one, I certainly don't have the right to make that judgment. You know, I have been quoted many times as observing the fact that it seems to me that we have fallen into a pattern today in which our connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is something less than authentic by virtue of what's happened to our neshama. But it's not fair. First of all, because there are individuals and there are pockets of people who are passionate and who are connected. I don't think we're in the same. I don't know what it looks like to be on the 49th level of Tumah. I also don't think that when, as the Medrash says, that the Sar Shal Mitzrayim complained, Halolu v'halolu, Evdei Avodah Zorah, they're both Evdei Avodah Zorah, that in with respect to our own, as it were, our own experience, our own idiom, that I think we could also be subjected to that criticism.
The criticism.
Because I think, the Avodah Zorah is, crass Avodah Zorah is that, there's an idol, or a graven image, or people who worship the sun or the moon or whatever it is, or the astrological things. But Avodah Zorah, in its, if you want to get down to the brass tacks, Avodah Zorah is when a person is immersed in themselves, and when our lives are not, there's no God consciousness, where, I use the example of somebody who has a headache, so he goes over to the cabinet and takes out a bottle of aspirin or Motrin or something, and his headache gets better. When he went over to the bottle of aspirin, what was he thinking? Taking aspirins make headaches go away. Penicillin makes strep go away. Yeah, it's not even so much the keicher, it's not so much the arrogance of it, just the fact that I'm not maintaining the awareness that life, all of reality, all of our experience is a moment by moment expression of the Rebbeinu Shalom's term. We have this term teva, right? So nature, and it's almost as though nature has its own identity. The Baal Shem HaKodesh came along and made this statement about Hashgacha Pratius, which was seen as a chidush because it seems to have argued with the position of most of the Rishonim on Hashgacha Pratius. Amongst the Rishonim, so Hashgacha Pratius is either only, some argue that it's only for tzaddikim, that's Hashgacha Pratius, and the rest of the world is sort of like given over to some preordained process. There are those who say it's only about Klal Yisrael, and there are those who say it's only about human beings, but it doesn't apply to animals. And Baal Shem HaKodesh said, if there's a leaf that's lying on the field, and a breeze comes along and blows it to someplace 3 inches away, that's also by divine design. So there are those who try to reconcile those two positions. The last Lubavitcher Rebbe made a fascinating argument about sustaining the Baal Shem Tov's position. He says, we know that the world has no existence on its own, that it's every moment the world is brought into existence again by a divine declaration. The Asara Ma'amoros are a constant. The world doesn't have any existence independent of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that it has to be that every moment the Rebbeinu Shalom says, let there be a world with all of its, let there be a universe. So that it's ineluctable, right? It's inescapable that if you take that position, I mean, in other words, the Rebbeinu Shalom every moment is creating space, he's creating time, he's creating matter, he's creating everything that we know to be a reality. So if that's the case, then when the Rebbeinu Shalom Kavyochel, when he renews the world in 1 second and the leaf is over here, and the next second he renewed the world so that the leaf is in a different place, it has to be that the Rebbeinu Shalom chose to do it that way, and it's not arbitrary. So we can't understand why that's so, but that means that our experience in the world is a moment by moment expression of Hashem's intelligent, deliberate design. There's meaning to it. I think that legitimately what we can say, and to some extent I think it reconciles the two positions, that if, for example, a child is not well, and we seek, to give the child medicine, we do so because we care about the child. If the hot water heater is not working, and I call a plumber to fix the hot water heater, it's a deliberate decision, but I don't really care about the hot water. I don't have any relationship to that water. I think there's a difference between the fact that when the Rabbi Michel intervenes constantly on behalf of tzaddikim or human beings, it's because the Rabbi Michel cares about them. It's an expression of a relationship. When he chooses to move a leaf, there's a reason why, but it's not because he cares about the leaf. It's not even because he has a relationship to the leaf. It's because somehow that the movement of that leaf in terms of somehow the cosmos is
He
necessary.
doesn't care. Is that manifested in what we say that is a malach who's telling it to grow?
Right. I mean, so there's a kind of an
It's the
intervening
same
variable.
than a direct.
So if in fact, and Chanina Mendoza said, Misha Amar leShem Yadlik, Yemar leChemetz Yadlik, right? So what was he saying? He was saying that who says that oil is supposed to burn? It's a divine edict. This should be the nature of things. So the Rebbeinu at this moment could say, so vinegar should also burn. It's just a matter of how the Rebbeinu is going to express himself in our experience. So for some people, all of life is, in a certain sense, is miracle. All of life is a miracle. Nothing is a given. So it's an expression of divine interest. And there are those for whom that's, they go over and they take the aspirin, and it's the aspirin. So in a very subtle way, when we attribute power to something other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's what we deserve. Why are we making that attribution? So could you say, although we deserve in our own time? Probably.
I have a neighbor in Muncie who is a psychiatrist.